Donald Trump apparently thought that this was a little suspicious, and he said on Truth Social, "Has anyone noticed that Kamala cheated at the airport? There was nobody at the plane, and she AI'd it." So this week, I thought we should bring back a segment that we haven't done in a while. Let's do This Week in AI.
This Week in AI.
This Week in AI.
That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Kevin, what's been happening this week in AI?
Well, first up, the AI industry calls for a pause in regulating AI.
Oh, yeah. It's about time we stopped all of these onerous regulations that have been passed everywhere. I'm just kidding. There have not been any of those.
Yes, but this week, the biggest story in Silicon Valley that people are talking about that is not the election is this thing called Senate Bill 1047. This is a bill that has been proposed in California, a state bill that is technically called the Safe and Secure Innovation for Frontier Artificial Intelligence Models Act. And Casey, people are really upset about this.
Yeah, this is one where, rather than the federal government trying to set like one standard for AI across the country, California has come in, as it often does, and tried to offer a template. And while I think sometimes, those approaches have been very successful with things like auto emissions, this is one where basically every single company that works on AI says, this is terrible, please do not do this.
Yeah, so this passed the California State Senate in May, and this week it made it through the California State Assembly Appropriations Committee on Thursday. So the next step is it's now expected to go to the full assembly for a vote.
So what's in this bill?
So it's a long bill. It's got a lot in it, but basically it says that if you are making what they call a frontier AI model, one of the most advanced AI models out there, you have to conduct safety testing on it. That is the biggest sort of central piece of this. You have to tell the government that you're doing this. You have to conduct safety testing before you release it to the public. The bill also empowers the state attorney general to take legal action against AI companies if their AI tools cause what they call critical harms, which they define as things like a massive cyber attack that does a lot of damage, or up to and including a mass casualty event. You could then be sued if you are an AI company who makes one of these models. There's a lot more in there, but that's sort of the thing that got everyone in Silicon Valley's hackles up and made them want to oppose this bill.
Yeah, and basically, it's a who's who of AI when it comes to who opposes this bill. So Meta, Google, OpenAI, Microsoft, and Anthropic all oppose it or have offered some lengthy proposed amendments. Y Combinator, the big startup accelerator here, released a letter from about 140 startups who oppose this bill. On the other side, some of the godfathers of AI, including Jeff Hinton and Yoshua Bengio, do support it. So, Kevin, what do we think of California's effort to regulate AI here?
Yeah, I think that there's been a lot of kind of inflated and hyperbolic claims being made on both sides of the debate, but I think this is a really important conversation to have because I think everyone agrees that AI needs to be regulated, but then, as soon as a bill comes along that would regulate AI, it's like, oh, well, not like that. Like, we didn't mean it like that. Mm-hmm. I'm a little skeptical that any of this is going to actually reduce the harm risk from AI. I just don't think the regulators can move fast enough to keep up with this technology. And so I think they're always going to be coming from behind a little bit. But what do you make of it?
Well, yeah, my feeling about this is we had the Biden executive order last year, which attempts to do some of the same things. And so far, it seems like the AI industry has proceeded along without really hurting anyone too badly, except for all the copyright owners, of course. My preference would be let the national government lead here. I do not want a patchwork of 50 different state laws regulating AI, and I don't see any pressing need for California to pass this bill now because I'm still not sure what specific harm they think that it would address even within the next few years.
Yeah, I would love to see more regulation around transparency when it comes to how these models are trained, what data are they using, what is the pre-training process, the post-training process look like, how are they, what kinds of decisions are these companies making about what their models can and can't do. That's the kind of thing where I think regulators could actually move the needle in the short term. But I think you're right. I mean, these harms, some of them are still very theoretical. I think that's actually not an argument against this bill. I think we should be trying to avoid harms before they happen.
Sure.
But I think in this country, the way that things usually go when it comes to regulating industries is that something terrible happens and then we pass a bill to prevent it from happening again. I think the risk here that the AI safety folks are worried about is like they don't think we will have that luxury. They think there will basically be these harms will arrive in some catastrophic form in the next few years, and we basically get one shot to stop them. And if we're late, then we're doomed.
I respect the point of view. This is just not how I want to solve this problem right now.
Yeah.
All right, what else is happening in AI this week, Kevin?
Okay, well, the second story from AI this week is that Humane's AI pin is the must-not-have gadget of the summer. This was a story, an amazing story in The Verge last week, which reported that Humane, who built this AI pin that was basically a kind of brooch that you'd wear on your shirt or your jacket that would let you talk to AI and project a little laser screen. The Verge reported that while Humane had brought in $9 million in sales of their AI pin, they had more than $1 million worth of returns, and that between May and August, according to the internal sales data that The Verge got a hold of, more AI pins were returned than purchased. Casey, is that good?
Well, Kevin, I'm no mathematician, but that does seem very bad and like a validation of what the critics were saying, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I think a lot of people wanted to try this thing out, right? There was kind of something cool and futuristic and sci-fi about it. And this is the great thing about early adopters. They will hand you $700 just to sort of maybe have an experience of what the future will be like. It seems like Humane's return policy was maybe a little too generous because, there's some things you can't return. It's like if you buy underwear at the department store, you can't actually return it. I wouldn't be surprised if if Humane puts out another device, if the return policy isn't much more limited.
Well, and making things worse, apparently, according to The Verge, Humane can't actually do anything with the returned AI pins, because there's some kind of limitation on the T-Mobile contracts that are associated with these devices. They can't just refurbish them and resell them to other customers. It's just a whole goat rodeo.
I truly feel bad for these people. They were trying to do something new and different, cool. It's hard to do things that are new, different, and cool. And they did talk a very big game. And the effect of talking a very big game is they create a lot of people who are rooting against them. And so now that it does seem like everything is falling apart, man, it just has to be rough days over at Humane.
All right. Our next story from the week in AI. GPT-4o is dead. Long live GPT-4o.
Oh my goodness. What's happening?
Well, Casey, you will remember that several months ago, OpenAI released the sort of new update to their flagship AI model. This was called GPT-4o. And this week, we got the news that they have quietly updated the model behind ChatGPT, which is now called, and I promise I'm not kidding about this, ChatGPT 4o latest 2024 08 06.
Wow, we're one step away from OpenAI releasing ChatGPT 4o final.
Final. Use this one?
Yeah.
It's so true. So they have officially taken over the title of the worst naming conventions for AI models, a title previously held by Google.
Of course.
But yeah, this is an update that they have made quietly. They did not draw a bunch of attention to this, and I think this was related to a sense that we've actually heard about from some of our listeners who have written in to say, hey, does anyone notice that ChatGPT has just gotten really bad recently?
Yeah.
Do you hear this?
Yes, people have written into us about this. And for me, it's always a hard question to gauge because, I don't know what you're, inputting. I don't know what output you're getting. I don't know what is making you say that it seems dumber. But the fact that these models are just sort of getting swapped in and out and still have basically the same names they did before is obviously very confusing. I feel like such an AI hipster being, back in my day, these things were called GPT-2 and then GPT-3, and it was really easy for me to keep track of. Nowadays, it's 4.0 is gone and it's being replaced by 4.0. You lost me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and it also feels like, release notes when they update an app, they'll say like bug fixes and improvements, and sometimes they'll have like a little list of things they fix. They never do that for these AI
No,
models.
no.
People just sort of notice, oh, this thing seems smarter than it was or dumber than it was. It's just kind of this like we're like trying to understand this unanswerable thing.
Yeah, as always, if you know what's going on at OpenAI, please get in touch.
Yeah.
We're trying to figure it out.
Have you been following the strawberry discourse?
Yes, I have. My boyfriend is obsessed with strawberry discourse, so it's become a hot topic for us lately.
Okay, I'm going to try to explain it to our
Yeah,
listeners
okay.
who are not as terminally online as you and your boyfriend and I are. But correct me if I'm getting something wrong here. So, for I would say more than a year now, there's been this sort of, I don't know, cottage industry of kind of people proclaiming to have inside information from the big AI companies, and specifically with OpenAI.
Yeah.
There are these accounts on X that sort of purport to be insiders or people with access to unreleased models who will sort of give these like vague, mysterious statements about like something big is coming, like no one's ready for what's about to hit the internet.
And there's this norm on X where if you're an AI person, you can have an anonymous account. And like some of those anonymous accounts have actually like gotten OpenAI's attention, and those people have been hired into the company. And so whereas normally you'd see an anonymous account and you would think this is obviously fake, in this particular case, it actually could be real.
Totally.
Yeah.
And so what's been happening over the past week or two is that Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI, recently posted a photo on X of his garden, or a garden, with some strawberries growing in it. And the caption was, "I love summer in the garden."
Mm-hmm.
Normal
Seems
post.
like a pretty normal post.
So the sort of QAnon AI movement went nuts over this. There was a sort of theory that was being advanced by this anonymous account called "I Rule the World," that this was actually a clue that Sam Altman was dropping, that the company's newest next flagship model, which is codenamed Strawberry, was about to come out, and that this was going to be AGI, and that the world was not ready for this.
Right, and I Rule the World didn't just do that, right? They had a sort of very long post on X where they talked about it in somewhat like cryptic and, I would say incomprehensible terms about what exactly was going on. But the gist was essentially AGI is very, very close. And I will just say I have truly no idea what to make of any of this, except to say Sam Altman did respond to this person on Twitter without really confirming anything, but in a way that I think did stoke a little bit of speculation that, well, maybe this person is onto something.
Well, totally. And he's also dropped breadcrumbs before. Like, remember before the demo of the AI voice mode, he posted her on X. And that was sort of a breadcrumb that they were going to be doing this like voice update. So like he is sort of fueling some of these theories in a way that I think he's mostly just having fun.
Yeah.
But there is this weird community of like people on Reddit and X and other social platforms who are just like trying to decipher all of the clues and everything that Sam Altman says.
Which I do think just speaks to the fact that like if you want to get people interested in your company these days, you have to create an alternate reality game where you're sort of putting clues around the internet, and there's stuff for the Reddit posters to discuss and analyze and tease apart. So they've been very effective at that, and I guess we'll have to see if any of this is real. In the meantime, though, I do think that this works as psychological warfare against Sam's enemies, because if you're working at Anthropic or Gemini and you're on X and you think, wait a minute, are they about to do it? Just sort of puts that little, fear into the back of your head, and it messes with you in a way that I think would greatly please Sam Altman.
Yeah. We need to start dropping some more like Easter eggs.
Well, let me just drop an Easter egg right now, Kevin. Watermelon. And I'll say no more. I will say no more. But let me just say, those who know, know. Okay?
Yeah. If you know, you know.
You know, yeah.
All right. Before we move on to our next item, here's our standard disclaimer that the lawyers want us to make every time we mention OpenAI, which is that the New York Times company has sued OpenAI for copyright infringement.
And Platformer has not. And that's the difference between the two publications.
Watermelon.
Period.
Okay, next story. This week in AI. Donald Trump is accusing Kamala Harris of deepfakery. So this was a story that went around this week. Donald Trump claimed falsely that Kamala Harris has used AI to make the size of the crowds at one of her rallies look larger than it actually was. So this was a photo that was posted online last week of a rally in Michigan where basically there's a plane, Kamala Harris's plane, and there's a massive throng of people sort of celebrating her arrival on the tarmac. And this was posted online, and Donald Trump apparently thought that this was a little suspicious, and he said on Truth Social, "Has anyone noticed that Kamala cheated at the airport? There was nobody at the plane, and she AI'd it and showed a massive crowd of so-called followers, but they didn't exist." Now, this is false. The crowd actually was there. We have well-documented evidence that this was not manipulated to make it look better, look bigger than it was. But this is now apparently a thing that you can just accuse your opponent of in a political campaign, is using AI to fake the size of their crowd.
Is this the first instance of a political candidate using AI as a verb?
I think so. I think that's the first time I've ever heard anyone use AI as a verb. He AI'd it.
I mean, look, everybody knows that Trump is obsessed with the size of his crowds, and he seems to have been getting more obsessed with it as Harris's crowds have grown. My initial instinct was to dismiss all of this as very silly, but it did kind of captivate the online right this week. And there were a lot of people sharing that and sort of, trying to analyze the photo in Zapruder film-like detail. And at the end of the day, of course, there's nothing to analyze. This rally happened. There was so much evidence out there, people posting all sorts of photos, videos from every angle indicating that, yes, there were many, many people there, but it didn't matter. And I read a really great post on this week from a guy named Mike Caulfield, who studies sort of misinformation and related topics. And he said, this is actually really important, in part because the idea that that Democrats really actually have small crowds is a core belief among the right. And people like Trump promote it because it means that should Harris win, people will have been primed to believe it can't possibly be real, because all along the way they've been saying, well, look, no one is even at our crowds. Oh, you thought there was a big crowd there? There wasn't. It was all just AI. So while on the surface this is an absolutely ridiculous story, we have to remember that these kinds of lies led to the violence of January 6th, and we are unfortunately seeing them again in this election.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Last story from the week in AI. This one is about the hottest new club in San Francisco is the Waymo parking lot.
Oh, yeah. It is popping off in the Waymo parking lot, Kevin.
So this is a story that came out earlier this week after people started posting on the internet about a parking lot in San Francisco where a group of Waymo self-driving cars were gathering at night and honking at each other. Did you see this video?
I did see this video, and I love this video.
It's so good. It's called, the title of the video that I saw was When It's 4 a.m., but the Waymos are getting aggressive in the parking lot. And if I can just describe it for our listeners, there's a parking lot on the roof of a building. Someone is sort of filming from a nearby apartment building, and it just shows these Waymo self-driving taxis kind of parked in a line, but then also kind of some of them are backing up and trying to sort of get around each other, and they're just honking and flashing their lights at each other. They're having a meeting.
It's fucking 4 a.m. Help.
What a great piece of commentary there. So, Casey, what did you make of this?
I always think it's beautiful to see robots getting together and just sort of talking through their differences, and this was no different. So, what did Waymo say about this, Kevin?
So they said they told The Verge that they are aware that in some scenarios our vehicles may briefly honk while navigating our parking lots. They also said that they've figured out what's causing the behavior and they're working to fix it.
It's so beautiful because it's such a powerful reminder that all the technology that we talk about in the show, the people who make it don't know how it works. And so anytime anything goes wrong, that's the statement they give is, we got to figure out what's happening.
Yeah.
Like, we couldn't tell you. But yeah, it seems like a problem. We'll look into it.
Totally. I mean, it does answer a question that I had, which is where do all the Waymos go? Because
that's one of my favorite children's books. Where the
'cause,
Waymos go?
they have to charge, right? Because they're all electric.
Mm-hmm.
But then they're not, it's not constant demand throughout the day. So, at 4 a.m. when no one's trying to get home from the club anymore, where do they go? And it turns out they go to this one parking lot. I just love it. I hope that they swap stories with each other about the worst riders they had that day. I love that the person who posted this video, Sophia Tung, has actually set up a live stream complete with lo-fi study beats.
That's
so at any
incredible.
time of day, you can just pop over to the live stream and check out what the Waymos are doing.
Sophia, you're a legend. That's incredible. Amazing work.
It's true.
Amazing
I love
work.
it. Casey, we should hang out in a parking lot at 4 a.m.
We really should.
Can we go hang out with the Waymos? I actually would like to do that some night.
almost do like a sort of David Attenborough style field recording of like, at night, while San Francisco sleeps, a group of cars gathers to share their thoughts. And it sounds like this.
Oh, yes, I love it. All right. That's This Week in AI.
That's This Week in AI. Hey, that's the end of this clip. If you liked what you saw, head on over to our page and subscribe, and you can get the full podcast. We do a show like this almost every week on tech and the future. Head on over there now and subscribe.